Between Friday and Sunday, 8 HKIS teachers and administrators went to the second Apple Education Leadership Summit in Singapore. This video was put together by the tech crew, Justin, Simon, George and Dean, to communicate our key takeaways. Before we go to that though, first an introduction to the conference and its unique venue.
There are 500 attendees from 28 countries, representing K-12 schools as well as higher education. Many of them are Apple schools already, and some are considering to become an Apple school. The venue of the event is at Singapore School of Art. In short, it is called SOTA. SOTA is an inspiring space for learning and a purpose-built school for the arts that has been sponsored by the Singapore government to promote a different kind of interdisciplinary, student-centered learning.
The overall message of the conference that all presenters came back to was why. Why does our school exist? Why do we do what we do? Why are we all here in Singapore talking about the incorporation of technology and learning? The core why question, of course, is why do we exist as a school? What is our vision? But it should also be the question of why we are doing what we are doing in our various initiatives. The why should be at the core of everything we do, founded in beliefs about education and learning. Often we can get caught up in the hows and whats. The problem is you don't convince people with hows and whats, only with a passion for a vision. Simon Sinek, one of the keynotes, pointed out that Martin Luther King did not have a I have a plan speech. He had a I have a dream speech. The vision for technology we have at HKIS seemed to gel with what we heard at the conference. That is that our use of technology should be embedded in student learning, ubiquitous and personalized. Understanding where students are is key. Technology is only a tool to those born before it was invented. To those born after, it is just an environment. We need to be prepared for students who view technology as simply another element in their environment, and leverage this to support student-centered learning anytime, anywhere. David Rankin, one of the keynotes, wisely said that people sometimes get upset with novelty, forgetting that everything we now take for granted was once novel.
We know who our sports stars are. We build gyms and fields and create teams for them to hone their skills. We know who our music prodigies are. We provide musical instruments, create bands, and offer performance opportunities for them to showcase their talents. But how do we know who the good learners in the classroom are? Do we provide authentic learning opportunities? Good learners personalize their learning, but do we provide the spaces for all students to maximize their learning? Marco Torres, a visionary teacher and speaker at the summit, posed these questions. He shared with us the story of the cafe owner in Parramatta who had a passion to learn latte art. She did not attend classes. She watched YouTube videos to develop her skills, practiced her craft in her cafe, and then shared her creations on Flickr to solicit feedback. She now regularly connects with hundreds of latte artists around the world. Her learning space was digital. Today's mobile technology provides authentic opportunities for learners to personalize their learning. Students can reach out to primary sources, real people, to gather data, collaborate with peers to problem solve and create, and then share and celebrate their learning with others. A digitally mobile environment. The learning studio is changing. It is evolving from the traditional classroom, with teachers providing all content, to digital devices where students can create and shape their own learning. My takeaway from the summit is that as educators, we should be identifying good learners and redefining the learning spaces for all students to realize their full potential.
Here's a reflection on one of the focus points of the conference for us, and that was around the area of learning spaces. One of the main keys that came out of the presentation was the same as in line with the rest of the conference, was the need to understand the purpose of the learning space. Why are we using it? What do we want to use it for? So to very much discuss and identify the purpose of the learning space. They had typically broken the learning spaces into 4 categories. The first of those being a cave environment where a learner's in a self-reflective environment dealing with their progress, their learning, so very much a one-to-one situation. Second category they used was termed as a campfire kind of environment, where we had a presentation environment where one or there were groups around, but it's very much a people showing other people, maybe one-to-many, a kind of an instructional process. Maybe the teacher telling the kids or the kids telling the kids, and that presentational environment. A third one they identified was a watering hole type space, where it's a very collaborative environment, very open, very flexible, very adaptable, many different things going on at the same time, potentially quite a noisy environment, very open, very flexible, very adaptable. The fourth one they identified was this mountaintop, where very much a broadcasting environment, celebration, sharing, people, communicating their successes or their journeys or their efforts so far. So of those 4 items, there was very much the need to identify the purpose. What are we doing? How many of these items do we want? What do those items look like? And in order to identify that, they spoke to the development, the redevelopment, the creation, the recreation of the learning spaces, and what's the important factors when going through that process. One of those was, again, as in line, was to identify the purpose, so be very clear and identify the purpose for the spaces. Also, that it's an ongoing and it's an open communication with all of the invested parties, and that communication is ongoing, is repeated, is innovative, is thoughtful. They spoke very much about the need to research and investigate options, to visit other environments, have a look around, see what else is going in, see what options we have. Again, back to the communication, speak to the invested parties. What do they need? What do they want? What's the purpose? So that ongoing communication was a very critical piece. They mentioned some figures on it and said an 80-20 relationship, and that the communication and the conversation should be taken up about 80%. So it's a major focus around the communication item. And ongoing, if we're recreating or creating, we have ongoing discussions, we give designs back, we go back and talk about it again, and that we don't try and lock down decisions too early. We keep it open and flexible and communicate it. We also spoke about, if you were to say to the students, where would you like to be now? Where do you want to be right now? What would they say? Would they say school? We'll all have opinions on that, but it was that issue of, do we want them to say school? Okay, so we need to consider about designing a space that they would like to be in as a natural, enjoyable, friendly environment for them to be in. So again, the communication, maybe the students need to be asked, and what can be done? What can be done to make the learning spaces somewhere where they do want to be, something that's suitable and appropriate to the way they operate and the way they learn, and again, the learning styles that they're dealing with.
At the end of the conference, Dan Pink challenged the educators in the room to consider the kinds of questions that are asked in schools versus the kinds of questions that are asked in the real world. Rare is it that a grown adult is asked an English problem or a math problem. They are posed instead big honkin' problems. Do educational processes, as they now exist, provide students or teachers the space and tools necessary to answer big honkin' problems? The implications for this go beyond just technology, but to the heart of our curriculum, learning space design, calendars, and schedules.